Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome to another session of our Day One and Beyond series, where we take you through a variety of topics. Our today's session is Intro to Oracle Cloud Financial Operations. So in this session, we will cover the Oracle Cloud infrastructure tools used to keep track of cloud resources and consumption costs. And with that, I'm Olivia Ferda. I'm a cloud engineer on the customer enablement team. I'll be taking you through the second portion of today's session. I'm also joined with Winnie. So with that, I will hand it over to Winnie to introduce herself and to get us started.
Thanks, Olivia. Hi, everyone. My name is Winnie, and I work alongside Olivia as a cloud engineer. And I'll be taking everyone through the first half of this session. So we'll go ahead and get started. So on today's agenda, this is what we'll cover. We'll go over compartments, the tagging service, cost and budget analysis, and also Cloud Advisor. So here are some expectations. By the end of this presentation, this is what we expect you to be able to do and understand. I won't read through all of it, but it kind of just highlights kind of what we're going to be going through and what you'll be able to learn from today's session. All right, so I'll go ahead and dive into our first section here. So we'll do some overview slides to introduce today's topic. So here we just wanted to remind everyone and also just break down the responsibility between you as the customer versus the cloud service provider, what that kind of looks like when you're using different kinds of tools. So we have on-premises column, we have an IaaS column, and we have PaaS and SaaS columns. So as you can see, the responsibility is divvied up differently. On-premise, all of these attributes are the customer responsibility. But as you make your way to cloud and start using IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS services, you'll see that more and more of that responsibility is to OCI to manage. And these would be the specific attributes that OCI would manage in green, and in blue would be the customer responsibility. So this is just a way to kind of visualize like what you'll be able to gain in terms of, time and effort when it comes to what your employees will be doing. And next, this is a look at our Oracle Cloud ecosystem. So this is viewed in three different levels. So at the bottom here, you have your different deployment strategies. And then in the middle, this gray area has all of your cloud services. And then at the top, you can have your different applications, whether that's Oracle application, custom apps, or ISV applications. And today we'll be really focusing on the management aspect in the cloud services and the governance aspect as well. So before we go over the specific tools, we want to just showcase how OCI can help when it comes to financial operations. So these are a couple of tools that we'll go over today that really help with your organizational and business operational needs. So those would be compartments, so being able to logically separate your resources. The tagging service allows you to have different views of your resource usage from different perspectives. And then budgeting and quota policies. So budgets allow you to be proactive in managing your cost spend. And then you can also get notified when a certain amount of budget is utilized, so then you can take action on it. And with quota policies, that is a way to limit how many resources you want to allow to be spun up within your tenancy, so you can avoid, paying too much of a single type of resource and just limit how many resources are being spun up. So the first tool that we'll go into is compartments. Specifically, understanding what they represent and also how the design layout of your compartments is very important. So as a refresher, compartments are basically logical groupings of related resources that can be accessed only by groups that have been given permission through policies. And I really want to emphasize your compartment structure and how it's designed, since you are giving access to resources based on that compartment design that you have set up. So when it comes to different types of designs and layouts, some popular ones include a full stack approach, a shared services approach, environment stage approach, and also grouping or designing your layout based on departments as well. So compartments also work really well with some of the other tools that we'll be going over today, specifically things like budgeting and tagging. So when it comes to common uses of compartments, budgeting and quota boundaries is a really important one. Also, access control boundaries when it comes to making sure that only the correct people have the correct access. Customer isolation boundary is another one, and also cost boundary. So we'll just be building out this diagram here on the slide. We have our gray dotted line representing our root compartment that comes with your tenancy. And then you can start building out your child compartments and expanding the levels of your compartments. So we built out several levels of child compartments here, and we just wanted to show you how you can mix and match different design layouts for your compartment structure. So for example, one layer has a department design layout with finance, marketing, and info services. But within another layer of compartments, we have more of a resource allocation design layout for the compartments. And that's so that these groups on the right-hand side, they get the access that is needed for them to access their resources. So now that we included some resources in these compartments, you can kind of see why it's important to really have a design structure layout confirmed. So for example, here, the infrastructure admin group, they only access the infrastructure compartment through a policy, and they have access to all these tools related to infrastructure, and none of these other groups have that access. All right, so the next service we'll go into is tagging. So this is a great way to track your resources. It's really important to utilize tagging in your tenancy, and that's because tagging allows you to organize, manage, and control your cloud resources with an organizational scheme that you define yourself. So with OCI tagging, we've seen it deliver on a number of solutions, and those include chargeback and cost attribution. You're able to attribute costs based on tag. Organization and searching for resources becomes a lot more efficient when you have a good tagging structure set up. You can control inventory by tag, and you can also control tag spam. And with tagging, you can script bulk actions based on specific tag as well. So we'll go into the details of the tagging service on this slide. There are two types of tags available in the tagging service. Those would be freeform tags, and the other type would be defined tags. So with freeform tags, these consist of only a key and a value. There is no defined schema, and there's also no access restrictions. So anyone can create and apply freeform tags. But with defined tags, it's going to be a little bit different. There is defined schema. Defined tags need to be secured with policies. We'll see that in the next slide. And in addition to consisting of a key and a value, defined tags also live in something called a tag namespace. And a tag namespace is just a way to group your defined tags. We also call defined tags tag key definitions. Those are used interchangeably. So you can just think of defined you can just think of tag namespaces as basically a container for a set of your tag key definitions. And then within defined tags, we also have something called cost tracking tags. And these are used to show costs in the My Services UI, but all tags will be able to be viewed in your usage reports. And previously, you would need to utilize cost tracking tags to set budgets, but now you can set budgets on any defined tag. So I mentioned earlier policies need to be secured in order to use your defined tags. So when working with defined tags, we've kind of put some examples of what these policies would look like. What I want to point out is that these policies for defined tags, the subject of these are all tag namespaces, and that is how tag namespaces helps secure access for your tags and your employees. And since it is a policy, you can also attach a where condition at the end here to just make your policy more granular. So here, this specific where condition is targeting namespaces with the string value development in its name. So it's filtering on that. And there are different action verbs that give you different levels of access when it comes to policies and working with defined tags. So the least amount of access will be inspect, and this gives you view only, but you can also have the verb use, and this allows a group to apply, update, or remove a defined tag for a resource. And the greatest amount of access will be given by the manage verb, and this allows your employees to manage tag namespaces and the tag key definitions inside them. All right, our next tool here is still part of the tagging service, but this tool allows you to automate tag application within a compartment, and these are called tag defaults. They let you specify tags that already exist, and then apply it automatically to all resources when they're being created in a specific compartment. So this feature is really great because it allows you to just make sure that appropriate tags are being applied at resource creation without actually requiring the user who's creating the resource to have access to the tag namespaces. So in this screenshot right here, this is where you would specify which namespace and which tag key to use, and also set the type of value as well. When working with tag defaults, it is also very common to work with tag variables, and these are just standardized values that give you certain information about the tag. So currently there are 3 tag variables that tell you different things. One is the name of the principal that tagged the resource. And then another is the type of principal that tagged the resource, and then another is the date and time that the tag was applied. So how you would use these tag variables is you would copy and paste one, and then you would put it in the default value when you're creating the tag default. And so once you hit create on the tag default, then the tag variable will go into play, and you get to keep track of any of these tag variable values that you want to keep track of. So next we have a little compare and contrast chart of what we talked about so far, which is compartments and tags. So I just want to go through, what each tool is best used for. So compartments will be best used for setting permission boundaries with obviously your policies, but it's also great for project, department, and environment boundaries. When it comes to cost attribution, you're able to subtotal costs per compartment. And then with tags, it's going to be best used for cost attribution and assigning multiple dimensions of metadata. And when it comes to cost attribution, you can use these tags to track costs for projects that could span multiple compartments, and also for job-based chargeback. All right, and then lastly, to just conclude everything we've talked about, I want to go over some best practices for tagging. So the first would be to definitely use defined tags. All of our feature development is around defined tags only, so we really want you to take advantage of defined tags and how they're constantly getting better. And then next is to create tag key definitions for everything you want to search for. So after you set up your tag namespace and you start, setting up your tag key definitions, you want to just ask yourself, what would you need to search on? What are some keywords? And then go ahead and use that as a naming convention for your tag. And then next is to secure your tag namespaces. So going in and creating at least two tag namespaces in your environment, one just for everyone to use and one just restricted for cost tracking. But of course, you can set up, more than just two tag namespaces. But at the very least, it'd be really beneficial to kind of have that distinction. Next is to use tag defaults and tag variables. So just taking advantage of being able to automatically tag all resources in your tenancy or a specific compartment. And with tag variables, you can easily keep track of who tagged a specific resource and when it was created. And then lastly is to put all your tag namespaces at the top of the tree you expect to use it in. So the tree we're referring to is the compartment tree, and like many other different types of tools in OCI, tag namespaces do live in compartments. So we do recommend to place these tag namespaces at the topmost compartment where they'll be used. But that doesn't always necessarily mean, put it in the root compartment. And next we have a tagging demo before we go into the second half of the session today. So let me go ahead and share my other screen. So I'm in the OCI console now. This is my home page. And right off the bat, I do need to change my region. All right, now we're in the correct region, so we're good to go. So we're doing a tagging demo, so I want to show you how you would get started with your tags. So today we'll just be going over define tags, and one of the first steps you'll need to do is set up your tag namespace. So we'll go to the navigation menu, and then we will go to governance and administration. And then under tenancy management, you'll be able to find tag namespaces. All right, so again, just a reminder, tag namespaces, they do live in compartments, so you'll need to select the correct compartment on the left-hand side if you're looking for a specific tag namespace. And for me, that is a different compartment, so let me go ahead and select that. All right, so now we're in the correct compartment. You see that we have one active tag namespace that I'll click into in just a bit. I'll show you how you can create a tag namespace. It is a relatively simple process. You'll need to choose which compartment to create this tag namespace in, and then give your namespace a name, as well as a description. And you can also tag your tag namespace as well. But that's all you would need to create your tag namespace. And then we'll head into our existing one here. So you have a couple options up here. You can either add tags to this tag namespace itself, or you can move this tag namespace to a different compartment. You can retire this tag namespace if you don't want to use these tag key definitions inside it anymore. And then after you retire it, you can delete the tag namespace. And then you'll find the tag namespace information right under. And then under that, you'll see all the tag key definitions or defined tags that live inside this specific namespace. So obviously we have four here that are active, but again, I want to show you how to create a tag key definition first. So the first step would be to name your tag key definition. So this is where that best practice would come into play, and you want to think about, keywords that you would search on a lot and go ahead and name it here. and then give your tag key definition a description, what it's going to be used for. And then you can also enable cost tracking in this little checkbox here. And then lastly, you can specify the tag value type. So there are two types you can choose from. The first one is static value. So the user who is tagging a specific resource with this tag key definition, they'll be able to enter a string value for the for the tag value. And then the other type is list of values. So this is a little bit different. So you as the creator of this tag key definition, you can set a list of values that the user who's applying this tag to a resource can choose from. So for example, if I want to give my employees, 3 different values to choose from, oops, red, yellow, green, this would appear as a list with 3 options for them to choose one. And that's all you would need to go ahead and create your tag key definition. So let's take a look at our active ones. We have Apex, which is a string value type, and it is not a cost tracking tag here. We have name, which is also a string value type, but it is cost tracking enabled. And then lastly, on the bottom, we have type, which is a list value type, and it is not a cost tracking tag. So we'll go ahead and click into type so that I can show you what the admin side kind of looks like. So up here you have some options. You can either edit this tag key definition, you can retire this tag key definition if you no longer want it to be in use, and then after you retire it, you can delete it. So let's take a look at what you can edit. There's quite a few things you can edit here, one being the description. You can also disable or enable cost tracking for this tag. And you can also edit the tag value type, whether that's the list of values that already exists, or you can change the value type altogether. So I could change it to static, save changes, and it would go into effect. All right, so now that you have a namespace set up and you have already started creating tag key definitions inside it, one of the things you'll be able to do now is to set up tag defaults. So we'll go to our menu here, and because tag defaults are connected to compartments, we'll need to navigate to a specific compartment so that we can take a look at tag default for it. So we'll go to identity and security and then go to compartments under identity. All right, so we'll navigate to the specific compartment that you want to set up your tag default for. So for me, that's going to be Vision Corp. So I'll click into it. And now that I'm here in the compartment that I want to be in, we can take a look at the left-hand side here under resources, and you'll be able to see tag defaults, third one down. So you'll be able to see any active tag defaults for this specific compartment. And you can also create additional tag defaults. So I'll go ahead and show you how to create one first. So you'll need to specify the tag namespace that will be used. So we'll just keep it consistent and select Vision Corp. And then you can select the tag key based on your namespace selection. So one thing about this is you can't have duplicate tag keys for the tag defaults in the same compartment. So for example, if I try to click name, it'll give me an error and say that, this tag default already exists for this tag key name. So I'll need to specify another one. So I'll go with owner. And then you'll need to specify the tag value option for this tag default. So the first one is default value. This is where you can input your own string value to be applied as a value for every single resource being created in this compartment. So I could say testing as the value, and then if I wanted to use it in a testing compartment, then all of them would have a tag value of testing. Or I can also put my tag variable in this section here and just copy and paste whichever tag variable that I want to use. And then the other type of tag value is user applied value, and it's really what it sounds like. The user who is creating a resource in this specific compartment, they will need to input a value in the tag value section before they can actually create the resource. And OCI will basically force them to input something as the tag value for this specific namespace and tag key before it'll allow the user to create the resource. So it's a good way to force your employees to just make sure they're tagging their resources. And what last thing I want to point out is depending on the type of tag value option you've chosen for your specific tag key, this process might look a little bit different. So for example, if I click on type, which we know has a list value option, the default value will look a little bit different. Instead of being able to input any string value to use as the default value, you can only choose from the list that you designated when you're creating your tag key. So for us, that'll just only be choosing one of these string values that you can see here. So just something to keep in mind when you're setting up your tag keys and your tag defaults. All right. That's pretty much the rundown of tagging and how to get things set up. I'll pass it over to Olivia now, who'll go through the second half.
Thanks, Winnie. All right, so hopping into the PowerPoints, I'm going to dive into more of cost and budget analysis and some of the different tools available here. So I'll cover a few slides over the different tools, and then we'll hop into the console for some demos. All right, so going into the first tool, which is budget. So in OCI, you can set a budget on your tenancy, you can do it on a tag, or you can do it on a compartment. You can also set up the schedule for that budget. So it can be a monthly recurring, or it could be a single non-recurring. So you'll see that in the console. And then let's say you want to set a budget for a particular compartment. So maybe you set it at, let's say, $1,000 or something like that. From there, you can set up optional budget alert rules. Maybe when you're forecasted to hit a certain percentage or when you've hit an absolute amount of your spend, you can specify that and then you can list the people that you want to be notified when that does occur. So if that does happen, let's say you reach your budget, all you'll receive is a notification saying, hey, you've reached your budget. So it's more of a soft budget. If you actually did want to enforce your budget, one way of doing it is with functions. And there's actually a pre-built function out there called the zero quota limiter, which would help enforce that budget. So just something to keep in mind when working with a budget service in OCI. Another tool that I would like to cover is cost analysis, and this might make a little bit more sense when I hop into the console, but you can generate different reports to get a little bit more insight into maybe your monthly costs, see if there's any spikes in spend, stuff like that. And you can use many different filters, such as like time, available domains, tags, and then you can only use one dimension or how you're grouping that data. So you can do compartment, region, you have a whole list to select from. And so, yeah, you can get different reports and get information to that. Once again, if there's any spikes in spend and maybe if you were anticipating that. There's also quotas. So there's two types of limits to be aware of when working in OCI. So the first is your service limit. And a service limit is set by Oracle on your account, maybe based off contract for limits of a certain number of resources that can be created. And you can always request a service limit increase if you've reached that limit or almost reached that limit. So that's set more by Oracle. You also do have something called your quota limits, and this is set more by your admins on your different compartments. So if they want to get a little bit more granular with the number of resources that are being created, they can go ahead and do so with quota limits. So if they want to limit the number of expensive resources that are being provisioned, they can go ahead and do so, or prevent maybe systems from being created in a non-prod environment. They can do that with their quotas. And these are just some quota examples. And there's actually an area in the console that will kind of help you draft some of these quota policy statements. So we'll see that. But you can see an example right here. So setting this compute quota for this VM right here to 10 in a particular compartment. And you can get more granular with a where statement. So maybe where your region is Phoenix or something like that. You can also unset your quotas if you want to clear it. That would remove the quota for a resource, or 0 to remove access to a resource for a compartment. So there's several different quota policy statements or terminology to be aware of. And then this is just kind of a recap of the different tools that I just went over. So you want to organize your resources into your compartments or logical grouping of all your different resources in OCI, and then tag them to keep track of your different resources. So as Winnie showed, maybe you can tag by environment like dev, test, or prod. So there's many different ways of going about that. And then from there, you can create budgets. So if you want to do this for your tenancy, if you want to do this for your compartment or your tags, you can go ahead and do so. But these are more of soft budgets, but there are ways to enforce those budgets if you want to do so. And then you can also break down your cost using cost analysis. So there's different reports that you can generate with this tool. And then lastly, you can also utilize quotas to limit the expensive or the number of expensive resources that are being created. There's also something called service limits, which are created or more managed by Oracle. All right, so one last tool that I want to cover before we hop into the console to go over all of these different services is Cloud Advisor. All right, so diving into Oracle Cloud Advisor. So it's a great way to keep track and optimize spend. So what it does is it finds potential inefficiencies in your tenancy and offers solutions or recommendations that would explain how to address them. And these recommendations would help you maximize cost savings and improve also the security of your tenancy. So that's a little bit more with CloudGuard with the security piece right here. So it kind of has its own page. But you have all these other categories right here, such as cost management, performance, and high availability. And it'll give you the number of recommendations for each category, as well as the severity level. So from minor, low, severe, all of that. And then you can also keep track of how many of these recommendations have been implemented, how many are pending. There's several different actions that you can take for these recommendations. If you want to postpone it to a later date, you can dismiss it if you don't think it's that important. Or you can, depending on the recommendation, you can go ahead and implement it. So you have several different options here for these different categories. And yeah, just some benefits. Once again, save money because the Cloud Advisor has a set of cost saving recommendations, like maybe downsizing underutilized VMs or deleting your unused storage. There's also the performance category. So there's several different recommendations there. Also strengthen your system resilience, so more around high availability recommendations. And then once again, CloudGuard is more around security. It has its own page, so to help improve your security posture, you can take a look into CloudGuard. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and hop into the console because I want to walk through the different tools that I just covered in those slides. All right, so going in to the console, the first tool that I want to go over is budgets. So going into the menu right here, budgets is going to fall under billing and cost management. And another way just to find these different services is you can just simply type right here. So if you type in budgets, if you click right here, it will go ahead and take you to that service. So I know that we do cover a lot of different tools today, so that's kind of an easier way to track down some of these tools. But yeah, you can see budgets right here. And if I want to go ahead and create a budget, I can do so right here. I would give it a name, description, and this is the budget scope. So if I want to do it on a tenancy, I can select that target tenancy. If I want to set this budget on a compartment, I can go ahead and select that right here. Or if I want to set a budget on a tag, as Winnie showed earlier, you would have your tag namespace. So you can select that right here, the tag key, and then the value. So you can go ahead and do that here. So let's say I select compartment. From here, I can set up the schedule for evaluating my budget. So if I want to do it on a monthly basis, or maybe I can do custom non-reoccurring. And I can select the start and end date for that. And then you can also specify the budget amount. So I don't know, I'll just put 1,000 or something right here. So I can go ahead and specify that here. And then you can also select the day of the month to begin budget processing, depending on your billing cycle. You can select that value here. And then this is where you can set up your optional budget alert rules, and you can set up more later on if you want to. But you can do alert rule for when you've hit, a percentage of your budget. So if you want to know when you've reached maybe 100%, 80%, all of that, or absolute amount, or when you're forecasted to, you can go ahead and do so. And then you can list your email recipients here along with a message. After you've created that budget, I'm just going to go into one of these right here. So we have a monthly budget for compartments for $1,000. So I'm going to go ahead and click into this one just to show you kind of what it looks like once you've created that budget. So from here, you can go ahead and delete it if you want. If you want to make some modifications, you can change maybe the budget amounts, the day of the month to begin budget processing. And you can also create more budget alert rules. So right now we just have one for when we've hit $800 out of our $1,000 budget. Maybe I might want one for when I've actually, reached that $1,000 amount. And then it also notes right here, it's more, once again, of a soft budget. But if you want to enforce that, you can use something like functions. And once again, there's a pre-built function out there to help you with that called a zero quota limiter. All right, so those are your budgets and how you would set those up. In this area as well, you also have cost analysis, so where you can generate different reports to get a little bit more insight into your spend or your usage, all of that. So one thing to note here is that I don't have the permissions for this tenancy to view the spend, but it'll look different for you if maybe you're an admin or have the permissions. But you can still get an idea of how this works and the different reports that you can generate. So they have some quick reports right here. So there's cost by service. Maybe you can do cost by service and tag. There's also compute costs by compartments, monthly costs. So you can select one of these and it'll help fill out some of the fields right here. So you can do it that way. Maybe you have some save reports. So if you have that, you can select it right here. You can specify the start and end date, so you can go back to year to date. You can also select the granularity, so maybe you want to do monthly or daily cost or usage, all of that. So you can select these different values here. You can add lots of different filters. Right now, it's just doing it by service. If you want to get more granular, maybe you want to, do it by tag, compartment, region, resource, OSID, or Oracle Cloud Identifier. You can do that, but you can only have one grouping dimension, but you can see that these are some of the other values that you can select. So region, service, tag, um, all these values right here. And then once you apply that, you would see a graph right here. It could be bar, line, or stacked lines. So you'd see this information right here. But once again, I won't see it due to the way that our account's set up. And then you can also download this information. So there's a table at the bottom. So you can download that table as a CSV with all the information. You can download the current tab as a PDF. And then you can also download the chart. So you have several different options here, but that is your cost analysis. All right, so next service that I want to dive into is your service limits and your quotas. So this is under governance and admin. Of course, I can always just type up here to find the tool. But there's this page right here called limits, quotas, and usage. So I'm gonna go ahead and click into that. So this is a great page for getting insight into your service limit for some of your different resources. So you can do computes. You can check into your limits for compute management, more around database. If I select this, it'll start listing the tools under this topic. Scope, so I'm just going to do region, Ashburn right here, but you can also get available domain specific. There's also the specific resource. So if I want to know maybe my always free autonomous database counts, there's tons of different resources here. And then from there, we can see for our developer autonomous database instance count, what that service limit is, how many are used, how many are available. So it's just good to know maybe you've reached a limit like we have right here for always free autonomous database, or when you're about to reach a limit. This is also pretty helpful because if you want to draft your quota policy statement, so once again, if your admins want to get more granular with the number of resources that are being created, they can go ahead and do so here. So they can create a quota policy stub. They can copy the statement right here for that particular resource. And then right above this, they can go into quota policies. So they can create a quota, give it a name, description, and then they can go ahead and paste that quota policy statement. So setting this resource to a particular number in a particular compartment. And there's also something called the where statement, so they can get more granular with that. They only want to apply to a particular region or something like that. They can go ahead and do so. And then you can see some of the quota policies statements that we have here. If you ever need to edit it or delete it, make any modifications, this is where you can go ahead and do so. So yeah, that's your limits, quotas, and usage. And then also, if you've reached your service limit, you can always request a limit increase. And then lastly, one thing that I want to show is your cloud advisor right here and some of the different recommendations that you can leverage. All right. So right now we have two tenancies. So we have our parent tenancy right here. We also have our child tenancy. So right now it's showing both of those. So you can filter out that way, maybe if you have multiple accounts. And then right here, it's going to provide these different recommendations for these categories. So for cost of management, you might see estimated savings. You'll see the breakdown of the recommendations right here. So there's quite a few medium recommendations. You might maybe want to check into the critical ones. And then you can also keep track how many have been implemented, how many are pending, to help you reduce cost by maybe finding any resources that are underutilized. You also have your high availability category to improve your system resilience. So there's only 3 recommendations here. So you can see that. And then also there is performance. So I can see the breakdown of the recommendations here. And then CloudGuard is its own page. So it's more for recommendations on improving your security posture. So it's more of a security focus. If you want to dive deeper into these different recommendations, you can click right here. And then you can filter on the category. So if you just want to focus on, let's say, cost management, you can select that category. And then you can also filter by service. So if you want it to do autonomous, X data, load balancing, you can filter that way. Also, right now, it's just showing all of the active recommendations. Maybe I might want to search recommendations that have been dismissed or postponed to a later date. And then from there, you'll see all the different recommendations for the cost management category. So not all of them are active, so you'll see a 0 count. You'll see that there's quite a few right here for enable object lifecycle management. There's also delete unattached block volumes. So there's 14 here. You can see maybe the estimated savings, the importance, and all of that right here. So if I click into that particular category right here, it's going to give me a little bit more information on the recommendation. And then it's going to give me a breakdown of all the different resources. So you can see right here, for this particular resource, the estimated savings, the region, the compartment, all of this right here. And if I want to take action on that, I can select some of these resources. If I want to implement this, I can go ahead and do so. Maybe I want to postpone this to a later date. I can go ahead and do so right here. Or if I don't think that this is that critical, maybe I might dismiss these recommendations. And then, so yeah, that was cost management. You can do the same for performance. So you can take a look into that right here. Get a breakdown of all the resources and the action that you want to take. You can also filter. So right now it's showing pending. You can see any that have been implemented, dismissed, or postponed. And then lastly, if you want to make some customizations, you can go ahead and do so for some of these global recommendations and how it's being evaluated. So let's say for this category here, so downsizing underutilized base database system, I can go right here to customize. So this is the evaluation period. So evaluate based off the last 7 days. If you want to be the last day up to last 90 days, you can change the time period for that. And then there's different recommendation profiles. So conservative, standard, and aggressive. And it'll give you a breakdown of how it would evaluate. So for conservative, it recommends downsizing to a shape that produces an average CPU utilization of 10%. For here's 20% and here's 30%. So you can change that. And then you can also create overrides. So if you want to evaluate, let's say, a particular tag or maybe a compartment differently, you can go ahead and do so right here. So you can create an override, give it a name, specify the recommendation. So maybe downsize underutilized compute instances for that particular compartment and or tag. You can do, the last like 7 days, 14 days, stuff like that. Change the recommendation profile. And then this is where you would specify the compartment where you want to create the override for. And then you can also add a tag override. So this is where you'd select that tag namespace, tag key, match any value or match all the values. And then, yeah, so that is your override. All right, so lastly, I just want to hop back into the slides for a few closing statements and just a few things to keep in mind. Yeah, so you can use budgets, quotas, and Cloud Advisor to keep track of your costs in OCI. You can organize your different resources with compartments and then use tagging to keep track of those different resources. If you want to maybe tag by environment, you can go ahead and do so. And these are just other ways of learning more. So there's a few links for certifications, Oracle University. One thing that I highly recommend is live labs. So if you want to get more hands-on experience in OCI, there's some resources right here, documentation, and then some Oracle learning videos. And then we even have some more information right here. So we do have our Day One and Beyond series right here, but we also have our team, the personal training team, that offers more customized training if you're interested in learning more. And then we also do have our live labs, so we can walk through some of the labs, more one-on-one sessions. And then there's also the Code Innovate team, so it's a 5 half-day program to help co-develop with your team for your different use cases. So this is just some more information, and we have some links right here and some emails if you want to learn more about these different resources and programs. And yeah, lastly, we do have our core series here for Day One and Beyond, but we've added a few more here like analytics, hands-on, cloud native, cloud security, and did you know? So you can also explore those as well. And then also our next session is Oracle Cloud Networking Quick Start on February 18th at 10 a.m. Pacific. So we hope to see you all then to get an overview of networking and OCI. And yeah, with that, thanks everyone for joining.